This conversation and this video I'm about to have with you might get me in trouble, but here's the reality of it. I started this channel, I started my page more from a perspective of just having conversations about comfortable and uncomfortable situations and almost learning personally and business wise together so we can grow. One thing that's been on my mind is the situation with Charlie Kirk and what's happened. In this video, I'm going to talk about it, not from a political standpoint. I'm not political. I don't get myself involved in it. I don't know too much about it. I'm not a political guy, so I don't necessarily know what Charlie stood for. I don't know the debates. I don't know the story. I'm just here to talk about what's happened, and I think talk a little bit more about the philosophy behind it all, like the deeper meaning behind leaving an impact and business and growth, personal, professionally, all of these things, right? That's all I want this video to be. If you are here watching this video because you want to agree or disagree with me on a political level, if you want to say Charlie was a great guy or bad guy, unfortunately this isn't going to be the video for you, just because I'm not knowledgeable on that conversation. I'm not an expert, I'm not professional, I don't know enough about it. But what I do want to talk about is the situation, more from the person and what's happened and how we can take a lot away from that as business owners and people, right? That's all I want to share in this video, because I didn't know who. I have a few kind of bullet points and notes, right? That's why I'm scrolling. I didn't know who Charlie was before what happened, and I only started researching a little bit more afterwards. I only started looking into it. I only started thinking about it. My mind kind of went there a little bit when I was walking, when I'm in the gym, stuff like that. Initially, there was an element of shock to it, and I'll be honest, and I'll tell you exactly why. I see some of the character traits that he portrayed online, on social media, as stuff that can be a reflection of me, in the sense of two things, right? One is a reflection of hard work, excellent communicator, and something that I strive to be as a good communicator, or try and be a good communicator. He's a hard worker, he's religious, I'm religious. Like, those are the things I kind of see in him, that character trait I'd like to develop in terms of the communication, how well he was articulate, how good his vocabulary was, how religious he was, and how faithful he was in everything he did. And I think one big conversation I'd really like to explore together from what's happened is how much he pulled people in after his passing. So if we look at just social media, if we look at the huge funeral and how many people were there, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's one of the biggest funerals that, or something like that. I might be slightly wrong on this, but I think it's one of the biggest funerals in terms of how many people attended. It's like the levels of people that attended is like as if it's a president or a historical figure that's passed away. A very young guy to be able to do that is quite impressive. So I share this because, for me personally, I think we can all be so pulled in the moment. We can all be so pulled in the moment of like getting leads for our business, making sales, making money, doing all of these things. But I think one big thing we can take from this is that there's something that can live on deeper and bigger beyond you at times. And I think that's one thing that's worth exploring, right? One thing that I think is really powerful and worth just genuinely exploring is just the ideas, the beliefs, the faith, the conversations he had, right or wrong, have pulled people to him and pulled people away, and it's called a massive debate. But one thing I think he's done really well is he stood for something, and you like love him or hate him, I think you could tell he genuinely believed what he was saying. He genuinely was very attached to his ideas, and he very much believed he was right in what he was saying. Whether or not that's true, I refuse to comment because I don't know. But I think there's a lot there that we can take away from this, right? So many times as people, as business owners, as coaches, as leaders, which I like to think we're all leaders. You know, if you're watching this, you likely have some kind of a coaching business or you want to be a coach. You have to be able to lead the people you want to work with, and you have to be able to lead your business. You have to be able to lead your emotions. You have to be able to inspire, to motivate the people you want to work with, to move forward. Like, these are all things that are relevant. All of these things are needed to be done in order to grow a big business. You know, if you want to grow from 0 to 5k, you can do it just by posting content and by having conversations, taking sales calls, like all the stuff we teach our clients to do. But if you want to scale past that, it's much more about having ideas, having beliefs that you stand for and you believe in. And the reason I share all of this is because I think there's a lot there to it. I mean, there's a really powerful reminder of two things. I think one of these is how short life can be at times. I think it's a reminder that nothing is so final as we think in the moment. We can carry this stress, we can carry this anxiety, we can carry this negative emotions for our business, and all of these things that can go wrong or can catastrophize. And I heard this beautiful sentence somewhere. It's like, most of the problems we have, or most of the problems we think about, don't even happen, you know. And there's another one, like, you're so worried about a future that you may not even exist in, right? I think these two are so beautiful because in the moment, I know myself, I get anxious just like everyone else. I get stressed just like you, just like most people do, right? And it's so easy in that moment to kind of think it's going to be the end of the world and everything's going to go downhill and everything's going to go backwards. But I think it's in those moments is realizing that like what's final is when the lights go out, right? Like that's final, you know, that's final. Everything else between now and then is not, and it's just part of the lived experience. It's part of the bigger journey, the part of the bigger goal. I don't want to get too philosophical, too deep on these kind of conversations, but it's just something that's been replayed on my mind a lot because he was a young guy, a few years older than me. He created a huge movement around his ideas, around his beliefs and what he did, and ultimately, like, love it or hate it, I think there's so much there we can take in terms of the steps he did and he took to share his beliefs and ideas that we can take as business owners when it comes to building your own online platform. I don't mean to be controversial. I don't mean that you need to offend people. Whatever else is happening, I don't mean to look at that. I mean to look at the stuff he did do in his ideas that he created, right? I think there's a lot there that we can take, and I'm trying my best to stay neutral in this video. I'm trying to not take any sides. I'm just trying to take this as objectively as possible and not divide people with this conversation. But I ultimately think with the research I've done and with the content I've watched and stuff like that, I think what he did was really powerful in the sense of it was very clear the ideas he stood for, and whether he was right or wrong, you can tell he believed them inside his heart, and he really believed everything. That was his truth, and that was his life, and that was what he was living, right? The reason I share this is because I think so many times we can be scared to speak our truth with our business. We can be scared, anxious to speak what we believe when it comes to growing our business. We can be scared to not share our true story, not share why we started coaching in the first place, why we started doing this, why we started building this business, why we are so passionate about it. But it's those exact beliefs, it's those exact thought processes, it's that exact story that is the thing that's going to attract people to you in your coaching program. It's going to get people to buy into you to move forward. And if you look now, like the movement he created after his passing is one of legacy. You know, some people will deeply disagree, but the people that agree are so brought into it, are so invested, and I'm sure, without a shadow of a doubt, if he tried to build his entire business and his entire movement just from trying to get likes on social media, it wouldn't have had that big movement. It wouldn't have had that big legacy-esque feel that it now has. So there's two things here, right? Focusing on likes, focusing on engagement, focusing on comments, all of these stuff on social media is only going to take you so far. And if you want to get people to be invested in you as a person, if you want to get people to be invested and really buy into your story and buy into your coaching brand, I think there's so much power there about just being quite unapologetic about your truth and what you believe. I deeply mean that when I say it. I think there's certain things that shouldn't be on social media. I don't think politics and I don't think religion should be on social media. I would never tear people down on social media in public either. So that's just three universal personal truths I carry deep in my heart. I'll never tear people down on social media in public. I'll never talk about my religion. I'll never talk about my politics stance, even though I don't really have one, right? These things are not going to be on social media for me, but the stuff that's in my heart, the stuff I believe in terms of building a coaching business, my truth about motivation, about mindset, about hard work, about philosophy, about building a coaching business and building your dream lifestyle and business around it. These are all stuff I believe deep in my heart. These are all stuff I share. If you're a coach, if you're on a fitness business or any online coaching business right now, I think there's one big thing we can take from this is to be more unapologetic about your story, to be more unapologetic about what you believe, who you are as a person, and really go deep on that. Because I think that's what's going to pull people in. I think that's what people need more than ever. I think right now we're living in quite an isolated time, more than ever. With the rise of AI, with the rise of social media, people on their phone a lot more, people are a lot more isolated. If you can just share your honest conversation, your honest truth, without, in my opinion, without being overly political or being political at all, without being religious, I think you can win. Again, I think there's a time and place for that, but that's just stuff I personally wouldn't talk about and share. I think you can do if it's your truth, but that's the stuff I wouldn't share. But I do really believe that, right? I think there's so much we can take here. I think that's one big underlying truth that we can take from Charlie Kirk's passing and what's happened, is that your story, your truths, your beliefs are way more powerful than you realize. Because on the surface, let's be honest for a second, let's kind of take this video for what it is. And let's take the story for what it is. On the surface, would you say it's fair to say that Charlie wasn't, from what I can tell, wasn't like an extraordinary guy in one sense? And please bear with me for a second when I make this analogy. I don't think he came to me as a great speaker, but he didn't have like these huge character traits, right? Like we obsess about as business owners and coaches. He wasn't jacked. He wasn't the most good looking. He didn't come from like a rich family. He didn't have a huge funding behind him, from what I can tell. All he was very good at is communicating and getting his ideas across and just speaking his truth. And he built a huge impact, a huge legacy after his passed. And some people like loved him. They really stood for him. Some people stood out against it. So I really think that. I really, really do think that. And I think like the only other thing is, the only other thing I could think of as well, like I have written down here, is like, one is speak your truth, be very unapologetic about what you believe and who you are. And the second thing to add to this is just more urgency rather than waiting for the perfect time. From the limited podcasts and stuff I've listened to, what I can tell from Charlie's passing is that he had this big kind of urgent timeline as to getting shit done now and moving things forward, and he was doing it since like 18, 19, and he was just very urgent with just doing the debates, doing the podcast, and all of these stuff. And he didn't try and be perfect, he just tried to learn and get his ideas across. And I don't want this video to come across one-sided, one way or another. I just want to take some lessons that we can maybe have a conversation about as adults. I don't want to have this video be viewed as me idolizing someone or demonizing someone or being political. I just want to maybe take some of the things that, some of the positives, or some of the things that, some of the strengths he had, and what he's done, what's happened since his passing, that we can maybe learn from in terms of communicating, and bringing people together, right? I think there's that, right? Like, from what I can tell, people seem to be very united. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's my story. That's my not my story. That's my take on the story. If you want to disagree with my thoughts, my ideas, my observation, feel free to do that. Very different, more stoic, more philosophical. More of a conversation I'd have with friends around a dinner table late at night around ideas and how to communicate them, and communication, human psychology, stuff that I obsess about, right, and I think about a lot. I only think it was fitting because it's such a big story, such a tragedy as well, what's that happened. And yeah, take it as you will from me. I don't really want to go heavy into making these kind of topics and content ideas too much. I hope I don't have to make another one about anyone, right? So I do hope you take something away from it. If you do like this video, like it. If you want to see more content ideas of me talking to camera like this, helping you build your coaching business and having conversations, honest and open and raw conversations from it, make sure to hit subscribe, because there'll be more content like this coming, like more content about growing your business, more content me direct to camera, trying to help. And I will see you next time.